So we are going to start from the fifth sloka. What are we trying to discuss, to put it in the context, because we have had a bit of a gap between the previous satsang and today because we couldn't have a satsang last weekend. There are two basic points which the author of this text is going to make. One is that the jnana, or the knowledge, is different from what is jnana, or what is being known, the knowable. However, that jnana is not necessarily jnana of something, but that particular awareness or consciousness which provides that platform for any jnana to be produced. And he's saying that particular avabodha, that particular samvid or chaitanya or awareness is there in all three states, in the waking state and also in the dream state. And as we had a look at it during the previous two slokas, the basic difference between Swapna and Jagrat Avastha, the waking and the dream state, is essentially like this, that there is a difference between Vishaya and the awareness through which this Vishaya is becoming known. There is some difference. However, in case of dream state, what you are knowing, the knowable, the object of your knowledge, is not stable. It appears and disappears, and it's very specific to you. It stays there for a few seconds, and the dream changes, the reality which you are seeing also changes. It's not stable means at 2 points of time, if you try to compare, one is not available for verification. In Jagrat Avastha, you see the sun arising or rising in the east, and next day you also see the sun rising in the east, so you can verify this, so it's more stable. So sthirata and asthirata, taking that, there is a distinction drawn between the waking state and the dream state. The dream state's reality is not intersubjective, it's unique to you. Sometimes there could be coincidences that two people who are very deeply connected with each other may see a similar dream at one point of time. That's exceptional. But generally, if you go to a person and say that I have loaned you 100,000 rupees, when? Last night. What time? In the dream. That's not something he would like to honor. He doesn't trust that. But the awareness through which you saw the dream, the awareness through which you are now talking to that fellow, that consciousness remains the same. That sambit is remaining the same. The distinction between waking state and dream state therefore will vanish. He's saying, no, the distinction will remain. Not because the consciousness through which you know during the dream state and the consciousness through which you know during the waking state are different. Consciousness remains the same. However, the Vishaya, the object of this process of knowing, is different. One is stable, the other one is unstable. The dream state is unstable. That we discussed. Now, he's also trying to tell you that there is consciousness also during the deep sleep state. And if you cannot prove it, then consciousness shall not be nitya. For Vedanta, consciousness is all-pervasive, is universal, and it's nitya. Desha kala vastu paricheda shunya. Desataha kalataha. In terms of spatial spread, it's universally present. There is nothing that, it is not something which is local, that it's there. Right now you're thinking about something. It's very specific to you. Yeah, that Vishaya is specific to you. The consciousness is not specific to you. Your consciousness, my consciousness, and consciousness of anybody else who is listening right now is just one grand consciousness which we are dividing with names and forms, adjectives. We try to distinguish and differentiate individualities, not because your consciousness and my consciousness are distinguishable as different entities, but because we can so distinguish with upadhis or superimposed identifications. We can define them like that. Space is one, but we say this is the aerial space of Pakistan, this is aerial space of India, this aerial space of Bangladesh is just one aerial space. Now, in order to stretch the spread of this consciousness also to the deep sleep state. Otherwise, it will become anitya. It will become incidental. It will not become nitya. It will not become universal. First, he has to prove there is consciousness also in the deep sleep state. How does he prove it? Therefore, in the fifth verse, he's trying to first prove this, saying, Supto uthitasya so suptam avabodha bhavet smritihi sacha avabuddha vishayavabuddham tattada tamaha. When you wake up from deep sleep, now you have this experience that you did not know anything. So supta tama abodha. That darkness of ignorance that you didn't know anything when you had deep sleep. Bhavet smriti. You are able to remember that I didn't know anything. I was deep asleep. I had a wonderful sleep. I don't know anything. The Vedanti is trying to hammer this point home that in order to have memory, first you have to have anubhava. Sanskara janya jnanam smritihi. Jnana is of two kinds. Smritir anubhavascha. You have experience and you have memory of something. Now the memory has nothing to do with what you are experiencing. This is something you have experienced earlier, you are remembering now. Like a picnic party in which you are on the swing and somebody pulled you down. That guy is not here, that swing is not there, that picnic party isn't there, but you are able to rehash the whole in your mind. That's memory. Now, in order for memory to splash in your mind, you must have experienced it earlier, and that is the proof of consciousness. How? If you did not experience anything, how can you say, I had a wonderful sleep, I didn't know anything? Now, there is another philosophical trip here. I do not know anything. Socrates said this, my wisdom lies in the fact that I do not know anything. When you say, I do not know anything, the Vedanti has a very powerful questions to pose. Do you know what is the question he asks? He would ask you, when you say, I do not know anything, is it referring to some knowing or some absence of knowledge? I know that I do not know. Is it absence of knowledge? Are you sure you don't know anything about it? You are saying, yes, I'm quite sure. I don't know anything about it. I am quite sure is referring to presence of knowing. Some ababodha is there. So it's bhava rupa. I do not know anything. I have no knowledge. It's not absence of knowledge. There is presence of knowledge. And what is that presence of knowledge? The presence of knowledge is you. You are there. You are that witness. You as a witness are able to confirm, ascertain that you do not have specific knowledge about a certain subject matter. But you are also proving the presence of your consciousness that you exist. And therefore, in order to be able to say when you wake up from sleep, I slept well, na kinchid avedisham, I don't know anything. I did not know anything. To be able to say this, you must have experienced that nice, dreamless sleep. So there was an experiencer. Who is that? That Atman, that Pratyak Chaitanya, that Pratyak Atma. So we say that the mind was in a state of coma. But the Vedanti would say there's nothing called coma. It's an English word. That's fine. That's a state of the mental activities where there are no mental activities. Doesn't mean there is no consciousness and the person doesn't exist. He exists. Therefore, he's saying, Purva suptaha paschad uthitaha, a person who was first asleep and then he wakes up, supto uthitaha, suptam susuptihi tasmad uthita itiva. Suptam means deep sleep. And from there, somebody has woken up. Tasya sausupta tama abodha. Then that tama, that darkness means abodha, he didn't know anything, he's saying. So supta karinasya tamasaha agyanasya yo bodha. And he's saying, now kinchid avedisham. is referring to that ajnana, or darkness. I didn't know anything. But he's aware of that ajnana, right? That awareness of ajnana firstly proves the presence of consciousness. And it is bhava rupa. It is not a negative statement. It is ascertaining that I did experience a dreamless sleep and I don't know anything. My mind was not active. Jnanasya yo bodha jnanamasti na kinchid avedisham. I didn't know anything. In order to say this, sa smritir eva bhaveta jnananu na anubhavaha. So it can be only, it can be only memory. It cannot be anubhava because you're in deep sleep. But for you to remember it, you have experienced it. Why didn't you sleep when you were in deep sleep? Oh, because I was in sleep, I couldn't speak because I didn't have my jnanendriyas, my karmendriyas active. My sense organs were all in a sleep mode. Tata karanasya indriya sannikarsha vyapti lingadi abhavad iti bhavaha. So therefore, you know what happens. In order for you to be able to talk about anything, you have to have indriya sannikarsha. Your jnana sense organs must connect with objects of knowing. And then the linga, that suchaka, what indicator of knowledge, there's nothing. So you cannot do anumana. You see smoke, and therefore some people say it can be anumana that he didn't know anything. The Nyayakas argue like this. Vedanta is refuting it cannot be anumana. There's no syllogism here. It's not inferential knowledge. Why? Because for inference to be possible, you have to have some experience there. Some anubhava has to be there. You are seeing smoke. Therefore, you are presuming there is fire. Smoke, you are doing anubhava. You are experiencing it through your sense organs. So that linga, that gyapaka is available. That indicator of there is fire. There is an indication in the form of smoke. Therefore, you are doing inference. You are doing deduction. Without smoke, how can you deduce, or how can you infer that there is fire? You cannot. Now, when you wake up, there is nothing to experience. That experience part is over. You are referring to completely something which is past. And therefore, because I'm not able to remember, therefore I didn't experience, that doesn't hold. There are a lot of weaknesses in that argument. Tataha king tatra, then what happens? He's saying sacha iti. Sacha avabuddha visaya avabuddham tada tamaha. It's definitely that darkness, that ignorance is avabuddha vishaya. That means that is ajnana, which is jnana vishaya. This is a subject matter of some consciousness which witnessed that darkness, that ignorance. Avabuddha anubhuta vishoya jasya saha tathuktaha. That particular object or subject matter which is the object of your experience. That is why you're saying that ajnana is avabuddha vishaya. Sa tathuktaha, sa smritihi, that memory, sa anubhava purvika iti vyapti loke drishte. Drishta iti bhavaha. Therefore, whenever you are having any memory of anything, in everyday life, you can always prove. You cannot remember what you have not experienced. Yeah, there are certain very rare cases where people are now talking about past life regression. It's a big business. Huh? So, I don't know, there are certain psychologists also taking interest in it. And then there are people who are talking about near-death experience, NDE. A lot of people who are challenging it, and a lot of people who believe in it. But this is an area which is open for exploration by experts and the amateurs. But amateurs are much more active on the YouTube and social media, speaking about all this. Now, what happens here is that you are relating to a person whom you have not met in this life, and you're saying she's my daughter, or she's my mother, or she's my sister. She was my sister during the last life. You're being able to recognize it, and the child who does it, maybe he's just about 10, 12 years of age, or maybe less. You're referring to a lady who is in her 40s or 50s as his wife, or his twin sister, which is quite funny. But they're saying that he's being able to remember his past life. Even in that case, he had experienced in the last life. He has not experienced it in this life. But that is also Anubhava Purvika, that's Smriti. There is something which has been experienced. Now, there's another interesting thing. Sometimes you see one dream and there is a location in that dream. So there's a beautiful water body, surrounded by gardens, and there is a boat, and there are two kids which are playing, one boy, one girl. You are the third person. Just imagine this. And you visit that lake, you saw a dream. Let's not get into this whole complexity of how that was possible. But you saw that dream, you three were playing, there was an argument, and then you were getting late, you were scared your mother is going to shout at you. The dream ends. You are seeing another dream, similar dream, after 20, 30 years, where you are again meeting that boy and girl who are grown up now. Also, you have grown up, you're meeting in the dream. But then you have never met these people in your real life. It's quite possible. Some rare cases, you revisit your old dreams, which provide some raw material for a new dream. These are material for a lot of research. Such things do happen. But in all this, the Vedantic assertion that you cannot have memory of something which you have not experienced is not getting refuted. Because the Vedanta says, or the Indian philosophical experts on dream, their view is there is nothing called dream which is an innovation or an invention. Any dream uses the raw material of sanskaras and vasanas of the waking state. The whole thing gets reconstructed in a very innovative, creative manner during the dream state. It mixes up, in a way, to use T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, it mixes memory. April is the cruelest month, mixing memory with desire. The sanskara and vasana together, and then it charts out a new narrative where either there is some wish fulfillment, or Carl Jung would say that there is an indication of something which is coming up. We are not entering there. All we are trying to say is dream is not a completely swatantra experience or something that you are passing through which is purely independent. It's based on some raw material, some data which has been collected during the waking state. It's being reformulated in a dream state and gives you some happiness or sadness or whatever. Therefore, Smriti has to be Anubhava Purvika. That's all he's trying to prove, because the moment you agree with him, he would say that in deep sleep state, there was consciousness, and that memory of ajnana, memory of not being able to experience anything, is based on Anubhava. For Anubhava to be possible, for experience to be possible, there has to be a witness or experiencer. That is the simple point he's trying to make. So he's saying, Tasmat Karanat Tat Sosuptam Tamaha. That Sosupta Tama here is Ajnana. Tada Sosupto Avabuddham Anuvutam iti Avagamtabhyam. So you have to accept that this Ajnana is Jnana Vishaya, subject matter of your knowing it. Atrayam Prayogaha Mimatam Na Kinchit Avedisam. Iti jnanam anubhava purvakam bhavitum arhati. In order for you to be able to say that I don't remember anything, I had a wonderful sleep, you have to, in order for you to say this, ascertain this, you must have experienced it. Smrititvad, because this is a statement related to your memory. Same mata iti smritivatiti. When you look at, like, for example, kids are playing, and suddenly one guy breaks the queue and runs towards the gate in the school. The school miss is asking the little child, where are you running? My mama has come. He recognizes there are 4 or 5 ladies there, but he quickly recognizes his mother, Same Mata, she is my mom. The way, because he remembers. Similarly, you are remembering your deep sleep state. Now, he is now saying, Tasya Anubhavasya Swavishayat Ajnanad Vedam. What is the consciousness during the dream state? The reality you experience in the dream state is also made out of your subjectivity, but is different from the witness. Waking state, you have that Jagrata Avastha, you have the reality which is called the outside of your consciousness. But in the Vijnana Vada, Kshanika Vijnana Darshana in the Buddhists, or they are called Chittimatra, they would say there is nothing outside. It's all the mind which is projecting itself as outside. There's nothing outside the mind. Kshanika Vijnana Vada. And then you have Sunyavada, where it's all Pratyuta Samatpada, everything is kind of interdependent. There's nothing called Swarupataha Sat. For anything to be, any proposition to be true, it depends on another 20 propositions and they are mutually dependent. So there is nothing, there's a grand complex interdependence. Swarupata, nothing exists. Right? So that is their view. Vedanta says there is that platform on which everything is playing out. And that is a conscious field that's universal, unlimited. Therefore, in the verse numbers 6 and 7, now the author is trying to establish 2 points. Number one, that particular Sambhita consciousness can be differentiated from the field of the knowable, Jnana Varaga. This is Bodha, that consciousness is distinguishable from the Jnana Varga, or whatever is the object of your knowing. However, that Sambhid in the deep sleep state is not different from the consciousness in the waking state or in the dream state, because it's consciousness. Because of the Jnana Varga, or what is being known is different. It's stable in the waking state, unstable in the dream state, and absent in the deep sleep state. Absent, unstable, and stable. Deep sleep, dream, and waking state. This is the Jnana Varga. The Sambhid is different from them, but that Sambhid is one only. Then only we can establish it's Nitya, it's unchanging. It's that unchanging witness. And this particular consciousness neither appears nor disappears. Why? Because we are trying to establish Nityatva. That is eternal. It's undeniably present at all time, at all locations, in all individuals. It's not delimited to a shape or a name or a form or a date or a location. Therefore, it's Nitya. And that is what is not different from what we call as, that's why I'm telling you that Advaita Vedanta is not necessarily very explicitly theistic. It can be extremely philosophical, very, very rational and philosophical. God is not necessarily a very important part of it, even though during Upasana you have to do all that. But they argue that you have to go beyond all these intermediate stages of sadhana, where you will talk about the supreme consciousness and connect with it. It's spirituality. So you have non-theistic spirituality like in Buddhism or in Advaita Vedanta, where you are gradually sort of rising above a very limited theistic attachment to a name and form to a universal consciousness, which is all pervading. It's beyond all religions, all identities, all names and forms. And that is the greatness and the grandness of the Advaita Vedanta philosophy. So we'll look at it in the next 2 verses. Sabodho Visayad Inno Na Bodha Swapna Bodhavat Ebam Sthana Trayapyeka Sambit Tadvad Dinantare Masabda Yoga Kalpeshu Gata Gammeshwani Kadha Nodeti Nastyam Yityeka Sambidesa Swayam Prabha. Beautifully he summarizes everything. Slowly because we are doing Tattva Viveka, right? What is the nature of the absolute reality? He's trying to drive home through different easy ways to understand it. First, he wanted to take our attention away from the external or the internal realities, or the absence of these external internal realities in the deep sleep state, to the consciousness itself. And then he's trying to say sabodhaha, that awareness, vishayat vidnaha, different from what is being known, the vishaya, what is being cognized. Na bodhat swapno bodhavat. However, this deep sleep awareness or consciousness is not different from that Swapnakalina Bodha or Jagratakalina Bodha. Bodha is that Sambit, that consciousness. Yes, vis-a-vis the Vishaya, you can draw a line of distinction. Consciousness remains the same. Evam sthana trayapi eka. What are the three sthanas or states? Waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state. That bodha, that buddhi, that sambit remains one. Eka samvita tadvat dinantare. First thing, three states within one person, within one day. The person wakes up and then falls asleep. He has a dream, interlude, and then falls into deep sleep. Within one day, he's showing us three states. Consciousness is one. Experiences are different, right? The experience during deep sleep is complete ignorance. The experience during dream state is some beautiful phantasmagoric dreams. You see a lot of objects, very innovative, very imaginative. And then during waking state, it's very stable, definite reality you are experiencing. Unless, of course, you have taken some interesting stuff which opens up your mind to realities which actually do not immediately exist, which some people, whether under the spell of alcohol or any other intoxicant, may experience. That consciousness is one, that sambit, tadvat dinantare. Then he's extending the spread of that consciousness beyond one day. On a scale of time, he says that it continues, there's no change. Somebody might be tempted to say, what about the consciousness of a little child? It doesn't know anything. John Locke talked about tabula rasa, right? It's like a clean paper, the mind of a child, and then new sanskaras are added up. He says, yeah, I am not questioning all this. The Vedanta will have absolutely no confusion with John Locke. He would say, I got no problem. I'm talking about pure consciousness. The pure consciousness of a child and a person who is 20 remains the same. Absolutely no difference. The experiences are different, and I have no problem with it. I can explain it away. Therefore, he's saying, Masavda Yuga Kalapeshu. You have 12 months, and Avdas, different names of different years, and Yugas, 12 years, Yuga, and Tritya Yuga, and Dwapara Yuga, and Kalpeshu. Over long spells of time that are described as a Kalpa. Gata Gamyeshu Anekadha. Gata means what is past, Agamya means what is going to come. So in past and in future, you have all these are there, but however, na udeti, na astameti eka. There is nothing called it appears and it sort of dies down. There is, like you have sadvikaras in case of a person, right? Jayate, asti, vardate, vikaranimate, apakshiyate, vinachati. Sadvikaras are there. A little baby is born, stabilizes, becomes a child, then teenager. You have a cute little boy, a cute little girl who listens to you. Then they start lecturing you. They become young, right? What Hegel refers to as youthful disenchantment. And then in the 30s, they again have a new understanding. There is a reconciliation with reality. Not a complete acceptance as in childhood or not a complete rejection as in youth, but there's a sort of a reconciliation that happens. In the 30s and 40s, a very interesting philosopher. He is saying the consciousness I'm talking about can have different phases, it remains the same. It's never born, it never dies. Why? Because it's Nitya. Sambid Esha Swayam Prabha. There's a very powerful atom bomb is dropping here. You know what it is? When you are saying this is awareness, so you know about your awareness. How do you know that there is something called Sambid? Can you see the Sambid like you can see this object? Can you see Sambid like that? Is it object of cognition? Can you know that? No. The moment you agree, the question you will beg is, the consciousness with which you will recognize this consciousness, who will recognize that consciousness? That is anavastha dosha, eternal regression. And then if you say no, but you can know that consciousness through that same consciousness. No, that's not possible. What is utpatti? Utpatti is the pragabhava antima kshana. What is pragabhava? Let's imagine that this particular nail cutter is there. The moment it was made, that is the last moment of his pragabhava, prior non-existence. That is the last moment of his prior non-existence. Pragabhava antima kshana. That is called utpatti. It's born. And then it breaks down or it's destroyed. Right? It's pradvamsa bhava adya kshana. That the first moment of his non-existence is destroyed. It will continue to remain non-existence for billions and billions of years. It's sadi ananta pradvamsa bhava. The abhava in the form of destruction has a beginning, no end. Pragabhava, prior non-existence, prior absence, has no beginning. It's anadi, shanta. It has an end. Because the moment it's made, that abhava is gone. That is the nirvasa. Now, this particular thing you are now saying, this somebody can witness its born and its dying. A child cannot recognize its own birth. Nor can a person recognize his death. There has to be somebody else to witness it. Somebody else will say he was born. Somebody else will say he died. If he can or she can do it, there will be kartri karma virodha. You cannot lift yourself. You cannot witness your birth and death. That's not possible. Somebody else is going to do it. So how do I then establish its existence? This consciousness exists. He sings Swayam Prabha. It's self-luminous. It declares itself. And stupid question, who is the creator of the creator? There is no creator of the creator. That is an irrelevant question. That supreme consciousness, whether you call it pure consciousness, you call the Brahman, whatever it is, there is nothing beyond it which establishes its existence. It's self-evident. Long before Descartes talked about cogito ergo sum, I exist, therefore I am, Shankaracharya, roughly about 800 years in his commentary wrote, that question you cannot ask. Atmanaha swataha siddhatvat. Even a little baby, if you ask, do you exist? The baby says yes. Of course you exist. You ask any little child, he'll say yes. He has not done meditations of Descartes. Atmanaha swataha siddhatvat. Therefore, it's Swayam Prabha. Now let's look at the commentary as we move forward. Sabodha iti sabodhaha sausupta tamovo. There is some printing error. Let me check with another book. Give me 1 second. Yeah, 1 second. There's a problem with this PDF files. I'm not having a printed version right now. Yeah. So, sabodha vishayat ajnanat bhinnaha, during that deep sleep, that ajnanat bhinnaha, that I did not know anything, is actually bhava padartha. Bhinna bodha sopna bodha na. And then the knowledge, the consciousness which knows in the dream state or waking state, in the deep sleep state, consciousness remains the same. Ekadinavartini stanatrayepi avastha jagratadi avasthatrayepi samveda eka eva tadvat. And that consciousness remains the one thing during the whole day. Similarly, tadvat dinandare swayam prabha eka samved. And that consciousness remains the one, remains the same over months and days and yugas and kalpas and all. Gata gamyeshu, what is past, what is future. Anekada na udeti na astameti, neither it rises nor it sets. Sabodha iti sabodha sausupta ajnana anubhava vishayad ajnanad bhinnaha. That sausupta jnana anubhava, sausupta ajnana anubhava, your experience of that ajnana, that I couldn't know anything, I was deep asleep. Did you see there was somebody who jumped into your house? No, I was deep asleep. Vishayat ajnana, that vishaya is ajnana. You are having ajnana, vishayaka jnana. You are aware of, you are not being aware. So that ajnana vishayaka jnana vishayad ajnanad vinnaha pruthak bhavitum arhati bodhatvad ghatabodhavat. Now it is different. Ghatabodhavat. Like for example, you are aware of a pot. You are aware of the pot. The consciousness limit they say. Then you are aware of something else. Bodhantarat na vidyate. So you have ghata bodha, your knowledge of pen, knowledge of pencil, awareness of pen, awareness of pencil, awareness of this, awareness of that. Consciousness remains the same. It's only relating to different objects of cognition. Bodhantarat na vidyate, therefore it doesn't become different. Bodhatvat, swapna bodhavat, because this is verily consciousness like in case of deep sleep. Okay? Bodhantarat na vidyate bodhatva swapna bodhavat. Phalinam kathayan ukta nyayam anyatram atidisati. Now he first drives home the argument and then he's trying to put it in a context. Evam sthana trayepi eka. During the waking, dream and deep sleep state, the consciousness remains the same also over different days and months and years, over long periods of time. Evam ityadina, he's saying. Sthanatrayepi ekadinavartini jagradadi avastha sthanatrayepi. Within one day, you have a waking state, you have a dream state, and you have a deep sleep state. Samvida eka eva, that consciousness remains one. Sarvam vakyam savadharanam iti nyayat. So because you see, whenever you have any statement, any truth proposition, it presumes presence of consciousness. That remains the same. Any word, any sentence you mention, it has to have some meaning. It is referring to something. And there is something which experiences it. Tad dinantare iti, then he's saying, Yatha ekasmin divase avastatrayepi jnanasya abhedaha. The jnana, the sambit, the awareness remains one during one day. Same way, evam anyasmin api, in also other sequences of time, divase anekatha. Then you have different dates, different days, different months. Aneka prakarena gatagamyeshu atita agamishu. So you have past and your future. Consciousness remains the same. Maseshu, Chaitra Adishu, you have different months. Right now we have Savan. Avdeshu, Prabhavadishu, you have different names of the years. Yugeshu, Kritadishu, you have Satya Yuga and Treta and Dwapara. Kalpeshu, Brahmadishu, you have Brahma Kalpa, all these. Jnanasya Abheda Eva Ityarthaha. The consciousness, Jnana, remember this, in the Western philosophy, whenever you say knowledge, you are referring to knowledge of something. In Indian philosophy, when you are referring to jnana, you are not necessarily, that is Vishaya jnana. But there is a jnana which is above this, which transcends knowing of something, cognition of something. That is jnana swarupataha, that is pure awareness. So Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, when we say Brahma Jnana, it's not Brahmana Jnanam. That is not, there is no Kartrikarma, knowledge of Brahman. No, the Brahma itself is Jnana. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. We'll discuss all that as we move forward. Samvidaha Ekatva Samarthane Falamaha. So what is the benefit? Why should I go this line of argument? What is the outcome of this argument? What is the outcome of this whole understanding? Na udeti na astameti. It neither takes birth nor it dies. Yataha sambid eka ataha na udeti. The consciousness is one. Therefore, it doesn't rise in the east like the sun. Na utpadyate. It's not born. Na astameti. Na binashyati. It doesn't die. Now, slowly, the Vedanta comes in here. Our bodies will fall. Our minds will slowly decline. The consciousness will remain one. It's abhinashwara. It has no beginning, no end. We were babies, we became young, and then we are going through different phases of time during this lifetime. Body will come to an end. People will say we died. But then nobody dies. The body, these frameworks come to an end. The grand framework, there's no beginning and there's no end. Asakhya Kyor Utpati Vinasayor Asiddhe. Something which doesn't have a witness, you cannot say there was beginning, it was born and it will die. No, can you say that? For something to be born, something to die, there has to be somebody who knows it. The quantum physics people would say reality is observer dependent. And of course, you have the classical physicists who would argue the other way, saying, no, you don't have to all the time make reality observer dependent. I'm not entering into that debate. But briefly, Swa Utpati Vinasayor Taya eva Sambhida Grahitum Asakyatvat. That consciousness which is born, then it dies, and it itself can witness its birth and death. That is impossible. It's not possible. Okay, Asakyatva Sambhid Antara Bhavacha iti. And is there another Brahman which witnesses? Is there another consciousness which can witness the birth and death of this consciousness? No. That's one grand consciousness. Somebody might pose this question as a Purvapakya, as a defense lawyer. We invent a Purvapakya to establish our viewpoint with more strength. There is no opposition. The whole Indian system of knowledge is dialogical. So he's saying, Nanu, Sambhid Antara Asya api abhane jagatantya prasajyeta ityataha. Beautiful, powerful nihilist. What is the point of view? He's saying, if you're saying there is no evidence required for this sambhid to be there, you cannot establish, and there is sambhid antara abhave, there is no other consciousness to witness this. Grahaka abhavat asyaha api abhane. There is no grahaka, there is no witness. This pure consciousness exists. Who will verify this? Is there anybody to verify? Somebody can give a testimony, yes, Brahman exists. Yes, there is Atma which exists. I saw it. Or he's saying, no. That's to argue. Please listen to me carefully. What does he say? He's saying, look, Eshaiti, what is that? He's saying, Esa Swayam Prabha. This is self-evident, self-luminous. It doesn't require a NRC that it exists. Somebody has to give it a certificate. No, it's not required. Atra Ayam Prayogaha. What is it? Sambhid Swayam Prakasha. That Sambhid is self-evident, self-luminous. What is the argument? The Yukti Abedvatya Sati Aparokshatvat. It's not Vedya. Vedya means Vishayataya. Brahman cannot be verified as an external object of cognition. So it's abedya. Does it mean there will be no Brahmagyana? No, yes, Brahmagyana is possible. How? Aparokshatvad. It becomes self-evident and you experience it. How do you experience it? As an object of knowledge as different from you? No, you are yourself that. So through meditation and through analysis, we are going to go to that level of self-awareness where the awareness itself engulfs the knower, the known, and the process of knowing. It's beyond the triplication of the knower, the knowing, and the known. It becomes one absolute, all-encompassing consciousness. That's why he's saying aparoksha. Aparoksha anubhuti. That Atmagyana is aparoksha anubhuti. It's not paroksha. Ram was there. He had Dhanush, he had Lakshman as a brother, Ma Sita as his consort. Paroksha. Somebody describes you here. Aparoksha direct, but it's not pratyaksha. Pratyaksha, there is duality. You are looking at it with the help of your eyes. Brahman, you cannot see with the help of your eyes. Yet it's direct perception. Direct perception without the help of the sense organs is referred to as aparoksha. Aparoksha is a word essentially distinguishing this from indirect knowledge. And it's also distinguishing it from direct knowledge through sense organs. For that, we have a word called pratyaksha. So it's neither pratyaksha nor paroksha, it's aparoksha. It's direct perception without the duality, between the knower and the known is that supreme all-encompassing consciousness. Little hard to enter into it, isn't it? Slightly very philosophical, very complex. But slowly he will drive this point home with a lot of ease. He is one of the greatest intellectuals in the Vedantic Panchadashi. So he's saying, Vyatireke Ghatavat Sambit Swayam Prakasa Avidvatya Sati Aparokhyatvat. Vyatireka. He's giving Vyatireka Drishtanta. What is the different? Brahmajnana is different. Ghata Jnana. Ghata Jnana. There is Jnana of Ghata. Brahma Jnana, same thing. That Brahman is Jnana itself, self-awareness. That is the difference. Vyatireke Ghatavat. Nacha ayam Visheshana Siddho Hetuhu Sambidaha Asambhadyatve Kartrikamatva Virodhat. If you say that it itself can verify itself, there will be Kartri Karma Virodha. Subject-object contradiction. The subject cannot know itself as an object. You cannot be an object of your own awareness. There is something called introspection. I'm not denying this. Introspection is there, but there will be Kartri Karma Virodha. It's a logical point which they make. Parabedvati Anavasthanat. And there will be somebody else to witness and verify this Brahman or this consciousness exists. No, there will be Anavastha dosha. Why? Who witnesses that witness? Who witnesses the witness number 2, witness number 3, witness number 4? This is going to be, you can go on doing that. There is Anavastha dosha. Aha, so prakasatvena bhasamanaya samvidaha sarva abhabhasaka sambhavat na jagat andhya prasanga iti bhavaha. First is self-luminous, and then it illuminates everything else. What is the nearest example you can find? Is the sun. You don't need a torchlight to see the sun. You need a torchlight to see things in a dark night, or you are entering into a dark room. You need a torchlight to see things. What do you need to see the torchlight? Do you need another torchlight to see this torchlight? No. The torchlight is self-luminous. These are examples given in Vedanta in order to drive home this point. Now, in the next verse, but then we've sort of hit the timeline. Then he's saying why this particular Atma is the ultimate thing to look for in the verse number 8. Bhavatu evam sambido nityatvam swaprakasatvam cha tataha kim. Okay, this Atma, this consciousness is nitya and swaprakasha. So what? What do I get? What is interesting about it? Therefore, the author says, Iyam Atma Paranandaha Parapremaspadam Yataha Mana Bhubam Hi Bhuyasam Iti Prematma Nikshate. Anybody would like to say that, let me die? Let me not exist? No. Mana Bhuvam. There should not be my absence. I should be there. Irrespective of whether you are young or handsome, you're old, you are ill or you're healthy, you want to exist. Bhuyasamiti, I should be there. Of course, you have anomic suicides. Durkheim wrote, egoistic and anomic suicide. Some people commit suicides. They terminate themselves because of a faulty understanding of what they want to achieve. But there also that ego is there. Therefore, he is saying, Prematma Nikshate Para Premaspadam. This is the object of maximum love. They say, what do they say in Hindi? There's a beautiful Jaan hai to zahan hai. If you exist, the world exists. If you don't exist, nothing exists. If there is no consciousness, what exists? I mean, if you're getting terminated, everything gets terminated. If the consciousness isn't there, there's nothing. Yam Atma Paranandaha. And this particular consciousness is not something that we need to explore for the fun of it. No, because that's what is blissful. It's Parama Premaspada. That is what all of us love. We need to understand what it is. Because that gives you Niratisaya Ananda. All other forms of happiness are dependent on some positions, some experiences, some objects, and they die down after some time. Only in case of this particular Atma Jnana can you have Niratisya Ananda. There is nothing beyond that. Therefore, this is the benefit, the outcome of your self-knowledge. We will do the elaboration of it tomorrow. So I'll stop here. And in case there is any question, one or two, I'm happy to respond. Any question, anybody? Okay, so let me do the Santi mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti